Hi, my name is Lenny. For our presentation in Professional Skills and Sustainability, my group will be presenting on reducing dairy intake. Our members are Callie Willis, Desiree Martinez Espinoza, and Tori Lacus Biggs. We'll start by going over the agenda. We'll start with an intro, so talking about what we focused on changing and how we decided to go about that. The background, why did we decide to make this change, and what impact do we think it has on sustainability? We'll then address challenges that we anticipated facing, and then what we actually faced, and then how did we overcome them. We will then go over the results, what changed, what did we learn, and then what were some of the secondary benefits that we felt contributed during our 5 weeks. And then if we continued, what would the impact look like? We will then go over the survey that we gave to college students, what were the results, and what did we interpret from those results. We will then share our personal infographics that we made to inform other people, and then the shared infographic. Finally, we will go over reflection and conclusion, and then share some of the references that helped guide this project. To introduce our topic, our goal was to reduce dairy consumption for 5 weeks. The first week was our baseline week, so we discovered how much dairy we generally ate or consumed, and then we set some goals in order to reduce that dairy intake, and then we spent the next 4 weeks tracking the reduction. A basic guideline for our research as sustainability professionals was to make meaningful impact in our work, both as professionals and in our personal lives. We do this by practicing, teaching, and learning. What does that mean? Learning is discovering how we can make an impact. Practicing is actually implementing that impact. And then teaching is helping others learn how they can do the same thing.
Going into a little bit on the background on how reducing dairy intake could have such an impact on different factors. So firstly, going into the environmental impact, improper management of manure and fertilizers degrades water resources, soil health, and air quality. Also, daily production requires extensive land, water, and energy resources, so lowering consumption can ease the pressure on these resources and help preserve them as well. And animal welfare, reduced consumption can lead to fewer animals being raised for dairy production, potentially improving animal welfare conditions since not only cows but many other animals face a lot of abuse in mismanaged farms. There has also been studies that have shown that lowering dairy consumption has been linked to a decrease of the risk of heart disease, certain cancers, and also can improve digestion. So when it comes to personal wellness, reducing the consumption of dairy intake enhances weight management and also increases variety in diet. Dairy products are often high in saturated fats and calories, so cutting back can aid in weight loss or weight management efforts. And by exploring dairy alternatives introduces new flavors and nutrients, which ultimately enriches dietary diversity. Lastly, cultural and social are impacted by reducing the dairy consumption by just promoting the inclusivity and the culinary creativity. Now, by choosing dairy alternatives, you can accommodate dietary preferences and restrictions which promote inclusivity in social gatherings and in food choices. And by culinary creativity, you allow innovation to kind of become a thing in enriching culinary experiences for different types of people, for yourself and others, by experimenting with dairy-free recipes. So now I'll be going into detail about the challenges that me and my peers have faced when putting this goal into practice. So overall, organic products, especially dairy-free products or plant-based products, tend to be more expensive. So it becomes an issue for most people, including myself at times. So a solution we came up with that is to really only change what you can afford. As a college student, balancing out your schedule and setting a daily routine for yourself between balancing school, work, personal life can leave little time for meal planning / preparation. So a solution we came up for that was gradual change and really taking things step by step. Also, kind of involving yourself into more research and even just mentioning things that you have learned off the benefits or anything of that nature to your friends, so they could either become a support system or even become interested in doing the same practices that you follow. When it comes to social situations, maintaining a dairy-free mindset without feeling socially isolated when you attend events where the main menu items are dairy-based. A solution that we came up together was to either find an other activity to do with friends or just choose to not eat, but that's completely up to the individual. So with each of our peers having sort of different diets, having specific dairy products as an easy snack, a protein source, or simply for enjoyment was a challenge faced. And a solution that we came up with was finding alternatives that work while also being patient to find them as well. Establishing a new habit, which is obviously different, can be challenging for a few of us. Changing a habit that you have had for most of your life is very hard to remember and to implement, especially to your daily practices. So a solution that we came about was to take slow and gradual changes. It's important to carry an optimistic lens.
So, what were the results of our lifestyle change? So, in order to understand the changes that we made, we first had to establish a baseline in how much dairy we typically eat during the week. You can see this baseline in the second row. We each had very different dairy consumption levels, with mine being the highest at 67.5 ounces in a week, whereas Callie, Desiree, and Lenny had relatively no numbers. And this is because we all knew that we do think with sustainability in mind when it comes to our dietary choices. This was a week where I just had a lot of yogurt going bad, so that contributed to my baseline as well. And throughout the weeks, we continued to track how many ounces we had, as well as the total that we consumed over the course of the whole project, which you can see as the last row in the chart. And moving forward, we can see our results in chart form just to establish more of a visual of what each metric meant. So you can see our total bars, which are color-coded for our names, as well as each week. And really from the baseline to the first week to the third week, our consumption of dairy products significantly decreased across the board. So that was pretty interesting to see. It definitely did get easier over time, but in week 4, you can see that we did consume a little more dairy than we did before, at least Desiree, Lenny, and I. And that was partially due to just the end of the semester, a lot going on. And that really made us realize that making these lifestyle changes has to integrate with your life, which can be difficult at times. Some of the secondary benefits that came from this lifestyle change was gallons of water that we saved. So Desiree saved a total of 535 gallons of water. I saved a total of 1,803. Lenny saved a total of 318. And Callie saved a total of 759. Together, we saved a total of 3,415 gallons of water, which is pretty impressive to hear, and it makes me realize how crucial these small changes can be, and just how things in our life that we really wouldn't assume can have this great of an effect on the environment.
If our group continued to practice reducing consumption of dairy for 1 year, the total amount of dairy intake would be 4,248 ounces. Our total consumption for a year at the baseline intake frequencies would be 6,936 ounces. The amount of water required to produce the dairy we would consume for a year, continuing with the baseline intakes, would require over 206,000 gallons of water. Lowering the frequency of consuming dairy would enable us to reduce that amount to roughly 126,000 gallons of water per year. Overall, we decreased our dairy consumption by 39%. In 1 year, we would save about 80,000 gallons of water. In our survey to college students at ASU, we asked about their habits regarding dairy consumption. All of the participating students have tried dairy alternatives before, despite only 3 respondents being lactose intolerant. Almond milk appears to remain the most popular dairy-free milk, despite the trendiness of oat milk. A majority of college students feel that dairy products are not essential for proper nutrition, and this increases the likelihood of potentially including dairy products in their diet. In the survey, we also inquired about opinions of dairy industry effects. Almost half of college students said that they consume dairy products regularly, though more than half were willing to change their diet to promote sustainability and reduce environmental impact. Dairy alternatives are generally welcomed by students, but not always accessible due to price and availability. Dairy substitutes are expensive and therefore create a barrier for dairy consumers to cut back on intake. The result of this project has highlighted the importance of educating the public about concerns related to the dairy industry, including animal welfare issues such as unethical confinement and the separation of calves from mothers, or other practices that may negatively impact the well-being of cattle. Since cows tend to have long lives and eat large quantities of grass and feed, the amount of water required to produce enough of any food eaten by one cow is a very large quantity. A majority of college students are likely to change their diet for the sake of reducing environmental impact, and even more likely to do so if the cost was less expensive. And we have learned that reducing consumption for the purpose of practicing resource conservation and sustainable intake is just as important of a reason, along with health and ethical concerns.
Created an infographic that shows our major group insights based on the results of our survey, based on each of our personal experiences. This is just what we realized overall with the experiment. So lifestyle changes can be motivated through education. This was a really reoccurrent theme in this project that we did. Really, the more you educate yourself, the easier we found it to be to have motivation to make these changes. And additionally with that, environmental considerations related to dairy consumption. So anything negative that the dairy industry poses to the environment can be used as factors for reducing consumption amongst individuals. And number 3, being open-minded can help create changes in our daily lives. Really just being open to change is one of the biggest factors in changing. Just being willing to try it, being willing to learn is a really crucial factor in motivating change. And also on the topic of sustainability is becoming better known overall. And from our survey, we realized that changes can be motivated by topics of sustainability, topics of thinking for the future, thinking for your future self, your future planet. And lastly, small changes can lead to big impacts. None of us knew that by reducing our dairy intake, we would be saving that much water. And that was really surprising. So there's a lot more than what meets the eye when it comes to making these changes that seem small.
We wanted to end with some reflecting and insightful statements that we felt are a good overview of our project this semester. What we learned was that sometimes you can't completely change a habit, but even reducing a habit can make a big difference. As people focus on sustainability, we have to do our research, practice the things that we learn, and then share them for others, and this should be done in both a professional and personal setting. Another important thing that we learned was to be patient, try what works, and leave what does not work. Oftentimes we get caught up trying to be perfect and completely reduce a bad habit, but oftentimes this just isn't feasible, especially for college students. In order to help people make change, and positive, sustainable change, we have to educate, make things easily accessible, and lower prices. Thank you so much for listening to our presentation, and these are the references that helped guide us through our project.